Hello and welcome to MYCast, the indie horror podcast based on and around the fictional Mycho Horror Universe. And today I would like to introduce a very special guest, but I couldn't find one. So instead, here is Sir Paris Rivers. How are you, sir?
I'm doing excellent. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm okay. And I use that joke on everyone all the time, so don't be offended. Every week, I say exactly the same thing coming in. And it never gets old, apparently. It does, I'm sure, very quickly to anyone who listens to any of these in a row. But how are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, all things considered. It's all topsy-turvy everywhere. California's on fire. But other than that, I'm okay, personally.
Yeah, well, I think I'd started to kind of trail off, talking about, oh, well, it's a bit post-apocalyptic out there, isn't it? But, that had started to trail off. And then obviously they still date this podcast quite dramatically, but I think they've suddenly gone, oh, shit, it ain't over. Round two today. So, I'm glad they've put in lucrative measures like closing the pub an hour early, and telling more people they can be at funerals than weddings. I feel like that makes all the difference,
People still need to go to work because we need the economy to keep going. That's very important throughout.
Basically,
People might make up their mind what's more important.
You can hang out anywhere you like as long as there's a card reader there.
Yeah, we can go hunting together.
well, now there's an idea.
Let's go hunting to get around these measures. Let's go pheasant hunting. Brilliant.
I'm not making a film. I'm hunting actors.
They're all out of work anyway.
That's all right. That's all right then. So, as usual with the show, I have 5 or 6 questions that I ask everyone, and you answer them. I guess that's kind of how an interview works usually. So
Wunderbar, yeah.
So I'll start with how I usually start, and I'll say, who the hell do you think you are? You tell me and the audience who you are.
As a person, or my character, the character that I portray in the series, or is this like an open-ended thing?
Let's start with your name and what you do.
Okay, well, my name's Paris Rivers. I'm, I guess, originally named after the Greek myth from the Helena Troy story. Not named after Paris Hilton. It's actually, Paris is originally a Greek boy's name. People often attribute it to Paris Hilton for Lord knows what reason. It is what it is. But me personally, in the entertainment industry, I work as an SFX technician, and I moonlight every now and again as an indie actor. So I did have an acting gig earlier this year. I was in an HP Lovecraft. It was like an experimental live theater show, and it was HP Lovecraft, and we were in a Zoom call, which is how we got around. That was the experimental part, and it was interesting. It was basically trying to come to grips with H.P. Lovecraft's rather unsavory reputation with all the racism and all the stuff he has in his work, and so it was just addressing that. It was interesting. So yeah, indie horror actor.
That sounds good. H.P. Zoomcraft.
Yes.
Excellent.
And
right.
He wouldn't let us leave the combo. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, I guess that really leads me on to my next question. So, we met because you're an actor initially, I guess. But how did you get into that?
Acting. Basically, just blundered into it. Really, after finished university, I was like, what do I want to do? I want to work in film. So I basically auditioned for everything that I possibly could. And if I recall correctly, an acquaintance told me about your production. I just auditioned, and then the rest was history. The
It was. Oh, actually, there's a funny story here that I've completely forgotten about until just now. But we had met previously before by pure chance. We were playing a charity gig. I was in. For those who don't know, I was in like a touring metal band a few years ago, and we were playing a charity show over in Harrogate. And
Oh,
while
yeah.
we were playing on this, it was kind of like in like a kind of pub that was built out to be like a venue.
That pub shut down now, but I can't remember its name. Yeah.
Yeah, and me neither. But so we were
The
playing on,
Regency.
yes. So we were playing on this stage, and there was people like there was guys basically getting their legs waxed for charity, at the same time, like while this show was going on, and there was loads of other things going on. But I specifically remember you while we were playing having your legs waxed for charity,
Yes.
and I came up and said
Yes.
something to you like, I don't know how you did that, mate. Like, and like that was our brief conversation, and it was only when you auditioned for Legacy of Thorn, and you said, "Oh yeah, you know, I was at this show thing," that I realised you were the same. You were the same guy. So we had met really weirdly. Our stars had crossed before we
that
even
one
worked
guy.
together.
Yeah. Good
so, yeah.
times, the Regency.
It was so I mean, how did you get involved in Legacy of Thorn? I mean, I know, but you can tell other people.
Yes, it was this acquaintance. I can't remember where. Was it Star Now that it was posted on?
It might,
back
yeah,
in the day.
It will have been, yeah.
Yeah, so I think, I was told about it, and I sent the audition video, and I guess you liked my material, because you've been working with me ever since. I can't remember my exact lines for the audition. It was back in 2012 now.
Oh, yeah, I have no idea which scene it was. I imagine it was probably one of the talky ones between you and Craig towards the beginning.
Oh, we had lots of talking. We did lots of talking instead of. We should have just killed him.
I know. You know what? It's one of those things as well that like as time goes on, when I come back to the film, I go, bloody hell, they you know, the characters fucking strung this out. Like me now, that would have been like a 2-minute scene. As a writer now, I would have been like, yeah, they have a quick chat and they're like, no, fuck it, let's do it. You know, but back then I was like, you know, I want them to really mull this over. So I think there's about 3 scenes where they really talk about it. You know, but I guess that's the thing about filmmaking is you kind of learn from your mistakes.
What was Craig's character's name again? He was a bit Shakespearean. He reminded me of Iago.
He was called Clark Burns.
Yeah, like post-traumatic post-PTSD Clark. Like he was hunching and he's quite Shakespearean. What
I really like about there's a juxtaposition between his and Alice's character because they both basically the same thing happens to them in the kind of first timeline, and like he's like all you killed that bastard, you know, and she's like, fuck off, mate, like, you know. Like, you wouldn't think anything had happened to her. Like, you know, she's so kind of matter of fact about it. And I quite like that. But, I mean, so the first film we worked on together was Legacy of Thorn. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about that and the experience of...
If I recall correctly, it was in Preston, in a high school that was soon to be bulldozed.
Well, it wasn't quite in Preston. So there was a weird mix-up that day. We were based in Preston, so you turned up in Preston, but we were over in Halifax shooting a scene over there, and you'd got the locations mixed up. So it made more sense to bring you over to Halifax. So you turned up, I think, on the first day of shooting while we were shooting at Jess's house location.
Okay.
Which is the first time I met you in person, I think.
Okay.
And you were just hanging in the kitchen. I walked in and was like, whoa. Like when I came down from the set. And and then we went over because the set was actually in Oldham, I think.
I'm trying to remember. I mean, I remember the locations. I don't remember the names.
No,
of
it
the
was
buildings.
Rochdale. It was in actually. Yeah, it was Rochdale. And yeah, so it's about an hour out of Preston, but I can understand, with being from across the hills, you'd get those places blended together.
Obviously, yeah. It was the 2010s. It was a different time.
It was. But I mean, the general. Tell me about Tell us about the general experience.
It was really exciting. It was my first speaking role in a feature-length film at this point. I didn't really know what to expect. And then I got to meet all the others. At the time, all the other main actors, so we were all like in our late teens to mid-20s, so it was a very young bunch. It just felt like camping. It was really nice. I remember.
Well, it was like that. I mean, like, a lot of people had tents set up, so they had some privacy at night and stuff, but indoors.
Yeah, we mucked about. I remember we stole wheels with chairs, and then we were ejecting ourselves with fire extinguishers, much to the chagrin of your then girlfriend, now wife, Anna. She loved us for that.
Well, yeah. So I remember. I think it was like night 2 or 3. A lot of the main cast had turned up by that point. So we'd shot the scenes for the day. We'd sent everyone up for dinner, and the rest of us had spent about 3 hours making this set ready for the next day, cleaning up all the stuff. And then the cast in the middle of the night decided to go downstairs and try and like rocket power themselves around this set on fucking fire extinguishers.
It's bloody brilliant.
So we came down the next day and they'd completely like ruined this set. So we had to build it all up again whilst like there was like a queue of extras because the local council had put out like a call for extras for us that we didn't know about. So all of a sudden, like loads of people wanting to be extras just descended on the school, and we were like, so we were desperately trying to clean up this set while all these extras.
You can't get good help these days.
Well, honestly, I'm amazed I ever worked with any of you again after that.
It was all a bit of a laugh, anyways, Father. It was all a bit of a laugh.
It was. So, but I mean, it was quite a grueling shoot. I think we spent 15, 16 days just camping, living in a school, camping there, like basically living there. And we became like a family, which was nice. It wasn't without its ups and downs. It was quite stressful, I think, because you're trying to make a feature film in a very limited amount of time. But as well, it was like the first time I've ever felt like a parent because suddenly, like Slasher House, there was about 5 or 6 of us, and we were all crew and cast and all about the same age. And so, I mean, there was obviously, you can have arguments and stuff on sets, but it felt like you were arguing with someone at the office. But bloody hell, suddenly coming to a set where, I'm entering my 30s and a lot of this cast are 18, 19, 20, Christ, I felt like an angry parent, like a whole load of the time. I was like, get down from there now. You'll hurt yourself.
Yeah, we were climbing on the roof as well.
Yeah.
Much again to your chagrin. I was a bit of a twit.
Well, I was like, well, look, we're gonna have to get we're gonna have to get some steps in here and a ladder to get everyone up there safely. And I turned around and there's Craig Cannon on the roof going, "What have we did steps for?" And I'm like,
"I'm going to be a stuntman one day," and he became one.
He really did.
Yeah. Wasn't he on Witcher? I think he was on Witcher.
Yeah, no, he was on what's it called? That one with the girl from that thing.
The girl from that thing.
Is it called Cursed or something like that?
Not sure. But yeah, I heard he was in London doing something big a couple of years ago.
Well, he did.
Now no one's doing anything.
He just did, he did stunts on I don't know if you've said, what's it called? The Courier.
Okay.
He did some stunts on that, so that was quite fun to watch as well. And he was in Gangs of London recently.
Oh, nice one.
Doing some stunts in that. So, I mean, yeah, it's great to see people that you work with go on to do, things that are a bit more impressive than rubber masks and plastic machetes and You know.
No, this is high art, Mike. This is high
Well,
art.
I don't want to sell myself out. Is I think my biggest issue. I'm happy to stay down here in the dirt.
You're gonna pass away, and then like 30 years from now, you're gonna be an auteur, and
Oh
your
yeah,
DVDs are gonna sell for hundreds of thousands of pounds.
if that happens, I'm coming back to haunt a bunch of bastards because that is unfair. I mean, we did some stuff in the middle. I think, to be honest, since Legacy of Thorn, I was thinking about it today, knowing that we'd be having the conversation tonight. And I thought you worked on most of our stuff since. I think you worked on
behind the scenes quite a lot.
Yeah, so you came and worked on Cleaver for a little while.
Yes.
Did you work on Hollower?
No, I did not.
But then you came to work on Slasher House 2. And
yes, I did.
Very foolishly, because I was like, you're coming to work on the film this weekend, and you're like, yes. And I said, excellent, you're in it. Learn these lines.
Oh yeah, and I remember. And I was like, what?
And you ended up playing Mr. Sensitive in Slasher House 2, which was one of like so we had like a bunch of characters that were named after like cliched stereotypes in slasher movies. And
my head got chopped off, right?
That's right. Yes, and
yes.
we shot it twice. I think we shot it as like a digital matte, and it looked all right, but I wasn't that keen. So we reshot it again with probably the worst fake head that I've ever seen in my life. But for some reason, I just liked that more than like the visual effect. But I think we shot those two things almost a year apart. So we shot the first time you got killed in November, and I think we shot the pickups for it and the rest of the scene in September the following year.
Probably.
It's mad.
All the years mixing up.
But yeah, no, I think we worked together. I mean, you worked on Slasher House 2 quite a lot. You were like an agent in that, and like a whole load of random things, weren't you? Like whenever you were down, you were playing some.
Then April Fool's Day, and then the Eric Jones mini film.
Well, I thought we'd talk about that because I think that's where things become a bit more interesting again for kind of us working together. So, what year was it now? 2017?
I think April Fool's Day was last year. I think.
We did
the second one.
Yeah, so we did one in 2015, which was April Fool's Day 5 or whatever we called it. And then we did Eric in the end of 2017, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. And it was freezing.
Yeah, so we shot in like this abandoned school where in December, I think. Yeah, it was the second week in December.
And I had to wear a tank top.
Your costume is basically a tank top. And we let you I was like, oh, it's all right, you get to wear a jacket. And then I was like, oh, but like it's in like the last 2 seconds of the film. So don't get excited kind of thing. But I mean, let's talk about that a little bit more because I think I think we get to see a lot of Eric in Legacy of Thorn, but I think we get to understand where Eric's coming from a lot more in Eric, A Tale of Thorn, which is what the short film's called. So, I mean, do you want to tell people a little bit about what that was like?
So, in this mini featurette with Eric, it's after the events of Legacy of Thorn. And to say that this guy now has a lot of issues would be a gross understatement. He needs a therapist and a hug. But
well, it takes place in like right in the middle of Legacy of Thorn, doesn't it? Because for those who hadn't seen it,
yes, it does. Yes, it
Legacy
does.
of Thorn is basically 2 timelines kind of fighting against each other.
So you're right.
There's a crossover point.
Storylines.
Yeah, and it happens right
in the middle. It's a mid-quill. It's a mid-quill.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, so it's after the first massacre at the high school, and he's trying to get intelligence on Thorn, so he kidnaps and tortures one of his acolytes for information. It's pretty brutal. The guy, Eric, is a broken man by this point, and he's lost the plot to an extent, and he's a completely different person to who he was when we meet him in the first part of the timeline in Legacy of Thorn. It's a very dark path he goes down, and then are we allowed to talk about Slasher House 3 Oh,
I mean, I think we'll get onto that next.
okay.
So we can
Because
talk
like
about
that
that
film
there.
was quite dark. It's very dark tone.
Yeah, well, I think the trouble with having so many characters to juggle in Legacy of Thorn is that even though Eric's one of the main ones, is I didn't really get to dive into a lot of what was going on with him. Like
You see, you see.
he's very hell bent on killing Thorn, but like we don't ever really. I mean, you get an
He's
idea of it.
obsessed.
Yeah, like you get an idea of it that he because his girlfriend died, and it was kind of like when they were at a bit of a breaking point. So I guess it's a thing that he never got to resolve. So there's a lot of stuff going on with him. But also, I think that, I mean, the big thing was that, like, you don't just become a guy who's going to kill somebody, do you? Like, I, no matter what happens. And I think the idea with Eric, A Tale of Thorn, was to kind of see that middle point where he's like, can I kill somebody? Like, with all this rage inside me, that I'm still murdering a person. Can I do that? And it was kind of, I wanted to see that mid-step in between. And I think that's what the film does, is shows us that transition from, like, being like a grisly kind of like broken man to being a guy who can kill somebody.
Yes, I most definitely. It definitely was a character exploration, and you got to see the poor guy is just completely consumed with Thorn, almost to the point like a lot of my friends who watched the series, they kind of make jokes now about how obsessed he's kind of has like a Captain Ahab obsession with Thorn.
But I like
And
that.
I
Yeah.
think it's going to lead. I think if I'm going to assume it's probably going to lead to his downfall at some point. But
Well, I mean, it has a couple of times.
I mean, he's already lost it, so you could argue he's already led to his downfall.
But I mean, he was very close to death at the end of Legacy of Thorn. I mean, like the big thing. So I think as you're quite lucky actually, because not many people know this, but the original ending for Legacy of Thorn was Eric gets picked up and taken into an ambulance, and Mem Furder, who played the kind of the older Agent Cyphers in the film,
shady guy.
Yeah, he like the idea was that he was going to come in the ambulance and be like, "What happened out there?" And he goes, "It was Thorn. He came, he's real. He came back, kind of thing."
Much.
And he basically smothered him with a pillow, and that was the idea that's how we learned that this guy was like, the town had set this whole thing up. But right at the last minute, so we sourced a place. We had like a whole yard next to a river with a real ambulance and everything. We went to a lot of fucking hassle to do it, and at the last minute, we had some issues with Mem's insurance. I don't understand the ins and outs of it, but he couldn't travel in a non-licensed production car, and obviously we work at a very low budget, so we were like basically, we'll have to taxi you there. Like, we can't pay to take you out there, and so he said, well, I can't really do that. It would have to be somewhere that's close that I can get to myself from the hotel. So we had to completely rewrite the end scene to be what it is down by the riverbank with CBBC's Johnny Nelson playing the police officer at the end there. But because of that, I was like, well, this means that like we can keep Eric around. Like, and so it was like, right, okay, well, what can we do with this character next? So it was almost like it was a pure production thing that stopped Eric from just that being the end of him, really. And so as I started working on Slash House 3, I felt like there was a bit of a hole in it, if you know what I mean. Like there was a personality missing from the dynamic, and I could not figure out what it was. And then it absolutely hit me as I was writing Eric, A Tale of Thorn. I thought, what if he is one of the main characters in Slash House 3? So, I mean, I know we haven't shot it yet. So, without talking spoilers, we've done some cast read-throughs and things like that. So, I mean, tell me, and by extension, the audience, like a little bit about where Eric goes in Slash House 3.
So, without giving too much away, sorry, let me pick that up.
That's the
Not giving too much away. So, Eric finds himself in this mysterious facility full of all these people. I don't want to name any names, but these aren't great people to be around. And one of them, obviously, because of his obsession, is Thorn, and that's what leads him there. And then he bumps into some other familiar protagonist from the rest of the series. And I personally like Slasher House 3 because my reading of it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like a straight up black comedy. Which is quite interesting because, like, given how Eric is at the end of like part 2, like timeline 2 and Legacy of Thorn and his midquel treatment, you get it's a bit of more of a light-hearted look at the guy. Which I kind of like.
Yeah. What I thought was really interesting about it was because I've realized very quickly that like our heroine is like super. She's basically like Spider-Man with a red wig. You know, like she's just quips constantly. Our other character is like the comedy relief, and so it was introducing such a self-serious character to bounce off those characters. So you get to see Eric from like the point of view of everybody else, like because the Thor movies have quite a serious tone, but the Slasher House films are a bit more comic book-esque, and so they kind of a little bit aware of themselves, I guess. And so I thought the interesting thing there was to bring this kind of very serious, like, I'm here to do some murders, like, and then how how those those kind of larger than life characters react to that, you know, with like
it bounces off. It's quite funny. He's basically like the straight man.
Yeah,
and absolutely. He's like, I'm here to do stuff, and he's like, no, we're here to do one-liners and slap our thighs and be awesome, ha ha. And it's quite funny. Like, and like, there's a few points where it seems a bit silly. I do love how it bounces off the three of them.
And I think that's the kind of beauty of starting to bring these franchises together a bit more, is that because they all have very, very different tones. You know, Cleaver has a completely different tone to Hollower, to Legacy of Thorn, to Pandemonium. You know, they all have their own kind of feel and tone to them and types of characters. And I think with Slash House 3, suddenly you've thrown a lot of those characters into a blender a little bit. And so it's finding the right ones to bounce off each other. And I think Eric being plonked right in the middle of basically like, you know, like these kind of superhero-esque ladies, you know, with his kind of, like you say, his kind of Captain Ahab kind of mentality.
Oh, completely.
And they're just like, who the fuck's this guy? And he's like, but he's not used to that either. He's used to being like the, you know, the guy that everyone looks to for advice and what do we do now, man? You know, and he's like, we kill him, we destroy everybody, you know. And now
we're
suddenly
gonna talk about it for 2 hours, then we might kill him.
And he's doing all of his serious talk, and like all the rest of these characters are looking at him like, what the? But then he gets his moments as well. But I mean, it's hard to talk about his dynamic really. But one thing that I found worked insanely well, which I can't wait to see on set, is putting Eric and Luce together, which I like. I just obviously happened completely by plot contrivancy. You know, like these characters have to be here doing this thing. And
which character do you say?
Luce.
Luce.
Just putting those two characters together in the middle of the film, you know, as kind of like a team up, like is the best, like my favorite stuff in the movie by a long shot. You know, those two characters bouncing off each other, is just fantastic. I really enjoy that. So I'm really excited to get to that. You know, that's
The character dynamics.
yeah, and like I said, that's the fun of having characters that have been around for this long, is that you can do that stuff with them, and people recognize them as what they were, and then they can see that juxtaposition, and you know, and for people who've been paying attention, that's quite a big payoff when they get to do these various things, and you don't get to do that in indie film very often, because most franchises are dead by this point. So, but I will not let it die. I will not. Right. So, I mean, let's talk about what's next. I know we can't really give any details away about what we're doing after Star Wars 3. We did announce it the other night. So if you were watching the Mycon 2020 Mycho Palooza, you'll know that we announced Wrath of Thorn. But I mean, from your perspective, where do you think Eric goes from here?
Oh, well, that is a very good question. That is a very, very, very good question. I'm not. Your brain works in Machiavellian and complex ways. So I don't know. I actually don't know how that new Thorn film is going to end. All I know is the general plots, and even then, I don't have too many specifics.
Well, yeah, we've talked about what we're going to do with the character, I think.
In general, but I don't know what's going to happen.
But yeah, I mean, even right now, because I don't have an ending just yet. You know, one of the things about indie film is you really kind of before you make an announcement like we're going to do Wrath of Thorn, you email around all your friends and actors and go, do you want to do another Thorn movie? And some of them are silent, and some of them go, fuck it, like, all right, yeah, fuck yeah, let's do that. So then, but then you start building your story and going, right, okay, so Eric's in, like, so what do we do with him? And like we announced the weekend, Bethany's back. So what do we do with her? And it's the same with Mina. And suddenly you go, okay, that's an interesting dynamic. How do we start to bring that together as a story? So I've always had since I started the kind of broad strokes of what the story is. But what happens to each particular character is now kind of, although I've known for a long time where I wanted to go with Eric in terms of, you know, the meat and bones of the film. So I think we're expecting a kind of, there's a bit of an Aliens vibe to it, I think, isn't there? Like,
I'm cool with that. I could channel my Sigourney Weaver and Billy Paxton. I can do that.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of a kind of Colonial Marines vibe, kind of, you know, thing with Eric's character. But it's interesting as well because there's a lot of moving parts again. So there are like 3 other stories being told throughout the film outside of Eric's. But I mean, that's all I can really say at the minute. You know, so ultimately, I think they all mesh together into what will be.
I'm actually excited to see with the character in my head, it could either go 2 ways. Either you're going to go the Shakespearean route and his obsession leads to his downfall, or you can go like the good guy Hollywood route where he does a complete character arc and then he overcomes his BS and becomes the hero that not that we need, but the one that we deserve, or something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean,
so it could go either way. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. It's a lot of it's in the writing process. Again, with indie film, you kind of have a bit more freedom to kind of because I mean, a lot of people probably don't know this, but in Mask of Thorn, originally Mina wasn't Mina at all. She was Eric's uncle. And that was the character.
She was my uncle.
Yeah, so she was originally a male character who was.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute, what?
Who was Eric's uncle, and I got all the way, like literally, to like 2 pages before the end, and was like, this is the wrong character to tell this story with, you know, like, and so we pulled that character out, and then went back to the beginning and wrote Mina. and suddenly the whole dynamic of the film changed to be much more about the mother-daughter relationship. You know, and the thing that really changed my mind about it was I feel like by adding Eric's uncle in here, I'm diluting Eric's character. You know, and if we want to have him return in Thorn 3, then diluting that character is probably not a good idea. So that's that's why we changed it, really. So again, like with Wrath of Thorn, it's one of these things where I guess I'll get to that point and go, right, what makes sense for this character now? Like, you know, in with what's happening. Like I say, so there are broad strokes, but there's no the finale's not set in stone yet. I don't think. I have an idea of what I think will happen, but you know, we'll see.
So will this be like, you know, Thorn the final chapter, but then an imposter plays him in the next one, and then we drown him at the bottom of a lake, but then he comes back and then he fights a telekinetic, because we all know Eric is based off Toby Jarvis.
Well, you know what?
It's open secret at this point.
It's funny you should say that, but we did a long time ago. There was like a fake Thorn series of Thorn films, and the idea was that Thorn, the first Legacy of Thorn, was going to be like part 6 or something in a chapter. And we thought, you know, in a series of movies at one time. And part 3 was the one where it was Imposter Thorn as a little homage to. It was Thorn 3D.
Then we have Thorn in space.
Well, I mean, all I'm saying is, if you're going to go to space, if you're going to go to space, you do it in part 4. So, you know, people can't see me winking, but I'm winking dead heavy right now. So, I mean, outside of Wrath of Thorn, what have you got on next? I know you're doing a lot of, I want to call it burlesque, but I feel like you'll tell me that that's the wrong
Cabaret burlesque.
Cabaret,
So if we're just talking about live performance, ignoring, because I do special effects in film. I worked in 1917 and a few other films, but I have no idea when I'm going to go back on the film set. So I know in London they're shooting Jurassic Park on and off. They're shooting Batman on and off. Funny story. Oh, no, I won't go into that. But like with the Cabaret Burlesque, I actually did a cabaret show 2 weeks ago in Brighton. I was singing a Les Mis parody version of One Day More, but singing but about COVID-19 instead.
Oh, excellent.
And yeah, one day more, another day, another destiny, another fucking week of quarantine. So, you know, that was all a bit of a laugh anyways. But I have no idea, because now we have the semi-restrictions back. The cabaret and burlesque scene is basically in hibernation at the moment, so
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, I mean, Dave does a lot of performance, you know, being a drag queen, so things like that. And I know he's on. There's a lot of pause around that in Manchester at the minute, which has a huge scene for things like that. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where you just kind of hope that we get back to normality at some point.
Hopefully, and recover from this economic recession.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I won't get into my politics on that.
Cut it. We're gonna get demonetized.
Get out! Go! Come on, man! Get out of here! But
we got to keep those sponsors happy.
No, we do, both of them. Well, thank you for joining me tonight. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been a pleasure.
And I'll just I'll do my usual. I'll pay the bills, and then we'll head out. So thank you for joining us. This has been MYCast. We put these shows out about 2 a month, and you can catch them on YouTube, or you can catch them a month early at patreon.com/Mycho. That's MYCHO. They also go out on YouTube. They go out on all various...
Oh, this is on YouTube. So, yeah. So the monetized joke is legitimate. Okay.
It is legitimate. we also go out on other demonetization places, such as iTunes and Spotify and most podcast servers. You can find us on there. We also have a show called Gritty Reboots, where we take popular franchises of various natures and try and give them a gritty Chris Nolan-y makeover. And we do that once a month. I do that with host that with Mr. Lewis Cooper. Also, you can catch Anna and Eve's show Real Horror, where they discuss real life horror events and try and pitch movies based on those things. Also, if you go to mycho.co.uk, mycho.co.uk, you can buy T-shirts. We've got a new Halloween range out there at the minute. We've also got podcasts up there, so you can catch up on all the latest episodes. We've got movies you can buy, DVDs, T-shirts, VHSs. We've got some action figures coming in the new year. We've got a video game, which I mentioned just now, but I haven't put anything about that on the website yet. We've got loads of stuff going on. And we're also potentially looking at doing, we just did a live event at the weekend called MyCon 2020. And we're looking at doing the Mycho Halloween Spooktacular.
Halloween's not cancelled, kids.
Yeah, it's just online. It's just moved
socially
to
distanced.
So you should be, hopefully, if everything goes all right, you might be able to catch us online for an online Halloween event with some live shows like this and some MYCasts. We'll maybe have some special interviews and some more live versions of our podcasts. Maybe some more panels. I just don't know what it'll be yet because, to be honest, it tends to all happen at the last minute. So I tend to panic and put together what I can. So thank you for joining us on MYCast this week. Thank you to Paris for being here. And
my pleasure.
See you all guys next time. Goodbye.
See ya. Bye.